said, great. You've got access to QuickBooks. Figure out how to pay yourself, and you got a job. The rest is history. He's now the VP.
Kevin, you said last year was your best year ever. Why was that?
The thing was, it went by in such a blur that by the time it all ended up, and we were running the numbers, I'm like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
That's got to be wrong. They're like, no, that's right.
Awesome.
I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, that's fantastic, great.
Welcome to Now That's It, Stories of MSP Success, where we dive into the journeys of some of the trailblazers in our industry to find out how they used their passion for technology to help turn managed services into the thriving sector it is today.
All right, Mr. Kevin Stock, President, CEO of RCR Technology Group in beautiful Findlay, Ohio. Welcome to the Now That's It podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited. Fellow musician, I was the drummer, this isn't the first musician, right? Outside of me, we've had a couple others on the guests on the pod. Why don't you talk? I want to ask a little bit about your background. Heavy metal band? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, well, I mean, I liked heavy metal as as a teenager and things like that, and rock, into metal. And when you're a teenager, you're angry, so metal really feeds that rage, right? And played around with some different bands, and then found my place in this totally original metal group, and started playing keys for that band because it was the early 2000s, and keyboards were okay in metal at that time, and then quickly moved to bass and still a little bit of keys, but mostly bass for that band. And then we got a Jägermeister and Rockstar Energy drink sponsorship, and ended up doing some small tours with them, all domestic, but it was great. It was.
Did you think you were going to be a famous rock star?
We were hoping to get signed.
Yeah.
And we had some offers along the way. Some legit, some you could tell were not. And we had a lot of fun in about 8 years of doing it.
So at some point, though, you're still doing the band thing.
Yeah.
But you had to get kind of a real job, right? And you're crushing it at running a Sprint store.
Yeah. So so I started. I started with technology back in high school, and computer networking really was the focus. And then I got a job in mobile, and I thought mobile technology was really going to be my next step in technology. With the Blackberries at the time and the Palm Trios and those kinds of things, I'm like, oh, this is the future. And it was to an extent, but that was really the direction that I was heading. I became an assistant manager at a Sprint store. Quickly, within a couple of months, became the store manager, then an area manager. Then I was running a territory of 7 stores. Then I was overseeing all 32 for that dealership, all in between early to mid 20s, way too early with all that responsibility. And that was sort of the tail end of that original band, doing all that traveling and stuff like that. So that was going to be my big boy job. And that dealership sold, and I went back to school for business instead of computers, and started Rock Computer Repair, which is where the RCR comes from, and that morphed into the MSP that we are now.
So you had the luxury, you had an opportunity to take a severance, right?
Yeah, I took a severance for that period of time to kind of go back to school and to kind of regroup and determine what I was going to do, because I really thought I was just continuously moving up in that company, and it was just who bought that company had offered me a gig, and I had thought about it and kind of dealt with those guys for a little while. It's like, that wasn't the direction I wanted to head.
Yeah.
So I took the severance and had some time to ponder what I wanted to do. And I was always the guy that was being hit up for repairing computers and knowing about technology and help me out with this and help me out with that. And this was in the XP Vista time period at that point. And so I came up with a pricing schedule and just kind of organized that and built it up from there.
That's great. So you're going to school, and school was really to try to figure things out. Some kids go to school, they know they want to be a doctor when they grow up. You and I went to school to try to figure out what we want to do with the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
But you have this opportunity, you have all these buddies and friends and colleagues and whatever hitting you up running, I need help here, I need help there.
Yeah.
And so you saw an opportunity.
I did. So I went back to school for business because I had gone to school for computers. I didn't really want a job in computers and networking and stuff like that. I wanted to run a business that provided technology for businesses, small businesses, because small businesses were really the ones that needed the help from a third party because they couldn't, they didn't have the budget to have it all internalized, right? So I saw that market, especially in our market, but our market in Northwest Ohio was just wrought with small businesses. So I was like, yeah, it's definitely a market to get into. People are always needing help. Technology is always advancing. I didn't realize at that point that end users were going to be so left behind as that went on.
Sure.
So but from computer repair, just quickly morphed into commercial need, small business commercial need, and that's where it heads to being an MSP and to being really the internal IT department for a lot of these small companies that we support.
So you were doing a lot of this on your own, right? You were a solopreneur in the beginning?
Yeah, in the beginning. I would say that I had help from other people early on. There was always somebody else helping out. All the way up into bringing my brother on as an intern in 2013. He was finishing up his 4-year bachelor's for marketing. Oh, he's going to kill me for not remembering. It was marketing and I think business essentially, and he had to get some internship hours. And I said, well, I'm on this big project, and I had some help, but I needed some more hands. So I said, yeah, we'll be able to do your internship hours. I'll be able to fill out all the paperwork for that. So he started doing the work with me there. And when he came on, it was more like, hey, I need you to kind of run the office right now, because I'm hands-on here, deploying workstations, setting up monitors, dealing with end users that are onboarding, creating the Microsoft 365 users and the tenant, and doing all that stuff. Get things situated back at the office. And so he was doing that, and that project wraps, and he says, he's got his internship hours, and he's like, hey, I'd like to stay on with you. And I say, you went to college for 4 years to stay on with me? Are you sure? And he said, yeah, this is the direction I'd like to take. And I said, great. Well, you've got access to QuickBooks. Figure out how to pay yourself, and you got a job. And that was the conversation. And it's all. The rest is history. He's now the VP.
He's amazing. I've gotten to know Jordan really well, and he's your right-hand man, right?
Sure
I mean, he's
is.
doing a lot of that work.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
Around 2015 is when you really started to get managed services rolling, I think is what you said.
Yeah.
And you found Enable about that time, although it was, I think, Max Focus.
Yeah, we
right?
signed on initially with Max Focus, yeah.
What was your aha moment there?
It was finally what I was looking for. I had looked at other things that were able to supply an RMM to an extent. But what I was really looking for at the time was something 100% cloud-based. And there really weren't a ton of options out there that were 100% cloud-based. And even in 2015 and before that, it was like, man, I'm not trying to set up servers and doing all this my own hosting and scripting and doing all that stuff. And this just seemed to have the tool set that I was looking for. Not long after signing up with Max Focus, it was a moving back over to Enable as it became and is now. And so then it was, a new rep and learning that person and stuff like that. So I've been able to grow with Enable. That's been the real plus with that. And starting in the early 2020s, I guess, was when we started to do these kinds of conventions and that kind of thing. So
That's great.
yeah, 15 was the genesis really of my relationship with Enable.
Talk a little bit about that managed service transition, because up until you became a managed service provider, you were just fixing computers, and someone needed something, you went and did it, time and material type work.
Yeah.
Where did you get? Do you remember where you got that idea of, I should just charge a reoccurring fee for this and do this more proactively?
Yeah, so I got that idea a couple of years prior. Just doing some research and just the client base that I had. I had like a car dealership at the time, and I'm like, there's a lot of users and stuff. So I had purchased bulk licenses of oh God, it must have been TeamViewer, I think it was, or some LogMeIn or something like that at the time, and I that's how I was managing it, right? So I had this commercial grade TeamViewer, and that's how I was managing the workstations and stuff. I'm like, man, I wish I could push patches and I didn't have to do it from a server and all this kind of stuff. And that was that, yeah. So, I needed something like an RMM to do that.
You as a sort of, I know you now. You've been a salesman your entire life, but you're starting out as a technician. And all of a sudden you have to become, once you sort of move from, I'll fix that for you, to, the problem hasn't happened yet, but you need me, you're telling a different story, right? You're selling them that reliability, that uptime. And so how did you train yourself? How did you get yourself comfortable? How did you get your customers, your prospects comfortable being able to say, sign up for us for X amount a month, and we're just gonna take care of all your IT? How'd you do that?
Well, building trust to begin with, right? So, in any community, but specifically in our community, you gain a few clients, and those clients talk to other businesses and things like that. And then you get in front of those people, and you're bold enough to have the conversation of who's managing your antivirus, or what is the conversation with a small business? What challenges do you have as a small business, specifically to technology, but what are your challenges? And how can technology help you? How could you leverage technology? And a lot of times with a small business, they're interested, but once they start to research it, they don't understand right away. So they needed somebody to sort of translate for them. And then they're leveraging technology for their industry. And sometimes when they were talking to their vendors and other partners, they didn't understand when they were like, oh yeah, we need to open up this port and do port forwarding or VPN tunnels or IPsec tunnels and things like that. They're like, oh, what do I do? And it turns out you don't have the equipment to do that. We can get you set up with the equipment to do that. We'll manage that for you. And we need to make sure that you have one antivirus throughout in your entire environment. And oh, you're hiring remote workers? Okay, because it's this day and age. How do we securely have you have remote workers and things like that? And there's some reluctance too. That, there's a lot of questions of like, oh, is that necessary? Is it necessary to? I remember one of the clients that we were building up a call center for. That do we really need to have a domain controller, an Active Directory? It's like, okay, well, you have, you're building up to this year. You're going to have 25 employees. You think you're going to retain all 25, or are you going to have a couple of those people leave? What's going to be your turnover this first year? Do you want to be able to lock them out of everything right away? Or do we want to have to scramble and try to find all the devices that they've been logged into and keep them out of them? And so, it was that kind of higher level knowledge that once you get in front of the people to talk to them about it and start talking about the implications of that and start to tell them, this is how we would handle this. I've got a plan for disaster recovery. I've got a plan for these things that you're concerned about. Because they don't have a plan, they have a concern, but they don't have a plan. It's like, I already have a plan. This is how we would handle that. Then they start to say, okay, I see the value in what you're in that number that you're showing me.
So you talk about building trust. Did you, obviously I love that description. I love how you just described the way you're sort of translating IT, right? Translating IT needs for your business, for your customers. But were you also having business conversations back then? I mean, you're talking about car dealerships, and were you trying to figure out what are the things that are happening that break down on the business side if IT fails them? And then that's one of those ways to really translate, right? Why IT is so important. What types of sort of business conversations were you having in those early days of selling managed services?
Well, I mean, as basic as paper or digital.
Yeah.
As basic as saved on a bunch of different workstations or the cloud.
Right.
As basic as what is the cloud, right? How can you leverage the cloud to make your business more efficient while also being comfortable with the fact that your business information is in the cloud? Well, how do we become comfortable with that? Well, why don't you have your own copy of it, right? And they're like, well, I can do that? Because when the cloud first came out, it was like this ethereal thing, right? And it's like, this isn't some magic. You're not really up in the clouds. It's just data stored in a different place than where you are.
That's right.
And that's good, because if your building goes up in flames, heaven forbid, you still got your data once you get to a place where you can connect to it, okay? But at the same time, if something happens to that data center, don't you want a copy of it yourself, right? Oh, that'll make me feel better. Great, and it's also going to make you a heck of a lot more efficient, because now all you have to do is save it in these areas, and you're good to go. And it'll scan your device, make sure it finds those things as well, keeps those things in a directory. Oh, it'll do that? Yeah, you didn't know it would do that, but I'm here to tell you, for reasonable licensing fees and reasonable support, we can make sure that those things are done. And also making sure that those things are reporting back to some place. You can't just trust that they're working. Some people, we have to be checking on that. And if something is wrong, if an update doesn't go through, if something happens with that, somebody's got to be checking on that and fixing it behind the scenes. And that just starts to make sense for a small business person that's trying to be more efficient.
That's great. So brother number one's been on board with you, but then Derek, your other brother, comes on board. What was his role?
So originally, when he came on, it was Jordan and I just saying, we need you to take some things off of our plate that we have that I don't think are getting proper attention. One of those things was a higher focus on HR, right? And he had some background in that. And we were able to say, like, we have some benefits, we have some things set up for the employees. We have an idea of what that is, but we need you to be 110% sure of what those things are and make them better, and then make sure that these things are properly communicated to the employees on what it is that what their benefits are, and make sure they're good and make sure they're well taken care of. Another thing is our service delivery, right? We got great techs. They're pretty autonomous. They know what they need to do. We're upfront with them. I need you to help them, guide them, keep them on task, keep them scheduled. We need you to be a point for them to say, hey, I'm out the door, but can you make sure that such and such is scheduled for tomorrow at 1? I just talked to them, and I need that in my calendar for tomorrow. And he's like, yeah, got it. And he's also able to check on them. Hey, what's going on with this ticket? It's getting a little bit old, things like that. He's, I guess the service manager, but it's just really a resource to our tech team, which sometimes can get a little hectic. So they need that extra support, and he's provided that.
That's great. So both your brothers are on board, plus a bunch of other employees as well. What'd you do to start to grow the business at that point?
So really, we had our managed services package, right? And that's always changing and morphing and things like that. But we started to just really, it was more of a system. So it was something set up that we could deliver to our clients and say, this is a package that we can sell, right? And a lot of that had to do with the fact that we were getting a lot of our licensing from Enable and some other partners. But then also at the same time, we're starting to talk to some of our other peers and to be able to have those connections in other MSPs. And that really helped us sort of confirm what we have as a package, that we're delivering our service offerings to our clients is legitimate, it's up to date, and it just made us more confident in front of our clients to say, as a base package, this is what you need, and depending on your industry, we can beef it up this way or that way.
Awesome. So how have you continued to give more responsibility to both of your brothers?
Focus on their strengths, right? For a long time, I was primarily the salesperson in terms of managed services for a long time, and Jordan was handling operations. And though I'm good at sales, he's just as good or better. And it was at a certain point where it was just like, I'm getting pulled away from sales a lot to kind of deal with some operations stuff and deal with the tech stuff and do that. And it's like, it made more sense for Jordan to really take on that sales role. And that was just a better fit for him in general. And he was able to really put his head down with that. I took on more of the operations side, and that's really where managed services took off.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was I guess a really a good second push, and getting us closer to where we are today.
Yeah, I always hear business owners talk about sort of right seats on the bus. You know, you want the right people on the bus, and then the right seats on the bus. And so, when you have your brothers, that's an advantage because you know them, you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses. But it's also got to be a challenge too, because in many cases you're asking them to do something that you're confident in them doing, but maybe they aren't yet. And so, what sort of support system? Obviously, I'm sure there's some tough love in there, and you have to be pretty direct. But what kind of support system do you guys give each other?
Space.
Yeah.
That's the support system is space. They know what my expectations are. They know what my values are. They're the same as theirs, right? We grew up the same, and we want the same things. And they know when to come and ask for help. And sometimes they know when they're coming to ask for help exactly what I'm going to say before I say it. And that's a really great shorthand with working with family. Jordan and I talk about this all the time. We're very similar in personality, but there are enough differences. And usually when he is mad or upset or angry or whatever, I'm the balance of that. And vice versa, right? Often each other's devil's advocate. And with Derek, he brings a completely different dynamic entirely. And it just gives us another lens, especially with as close as he works with the tech guys and stuff on a day-to-day basis. He just gives us another perspective to think about when we're making decisions. But we've got a deep respect for one another and a deep trust for one another. I didn't plan on this being a family business, and we have plenty of people that work for us that are not family. But with also having that family dynamic sort of at the top of the business, the rest of the team, I don't believe, feels any kind of nepotism or anything there, because I will come down on either one of them just as much as I'll come down on anybody else on the team. And if somebody has a problem with another employee or admin or whatever the situation may be, I don't just side with family because they're family. If they're messing up, they're messing up. But we have a pretty good communication. I mean, we're a small company, so we need to have good communication.
That's great. Kevin, you said last year was your best year ever. Why was that?
Well, I wouldn't say that it started off as our best year ever. We had been implementing a new PSA, and right at the beginning of 2024, we were sort of finishing implementing a new billing system into that integration, and it was just a big learning process and ironing out some kinks. So it was almost all hands on deck with regard to admin to make sure that the billing was all situated. Next thing you know, Q1 is coming to a close, and we look at sales, and it's rough, to say the least, because there was no focus on it. So we decided to make some adjustments. We made some adjustments with just how we were delivering our sales. I had said, hey, we're not just sending quotes. We're setting meetings to go over the quotes. We need to be able to go over these quotes live with the person. And I'm okay with virtual, but just sending a quote that all they do is scroll to the bottom and read the bottom number isn't getting us where we need to go. Okay? So bottom line, whether it's a professional services sale or a managed services sale or both, we set the meeting to go over the quote. And if they don't want to set the meeting, they don't get the quote. We won't waste our time. And that helped immensely. I mean, that was just a huge game changer. It also changed how we were doing QBRs and what we call technology success meetings, or TSMs. I started my campaign with these TSMs a little bit differently than we did QBRs before. And it allowed me, because not every client really needs to or will be available to meet every 3 months. And so it made more sense to be able to space those out a little bit better, to better serve our clients in the way that is best for them, and set up that schedule for those. And meeting with your clients with a prepared deck and opening it up for questioning for them really just opens yourself up to things that your client didn't even know they needed, right? Or just getting yourself in front of them, mostly in person, but also virtually, gives them the opportunity to think about some things that they need that they just weren't bringing up because they didn't have time to bring it up. Because we set that time aside, be it a half hour, 45 minutes, or an hour, a lot of times those TSMs will go over because they'll be asking more questions about it. They're curious about things. That's really what it's all been about. For the last 15 years of being in business, almost everybody's curious about technology. They want to know about it, but they want to be safe in it. We provide all of that for our clients. And sometimes they don't even know it because, we got to cover that. We got to say, hey, this is what we're doing for you. By the way, these are the proactive issues that we've covered, and these are the amount of tickets that came through. And if these proactive issues, if this number's higher than your ticket count, we're both in a better spot for that. Best that this ticket count is 0. Our goal is that you have 0 help desk tickets. So if we work together, we can get that to a big goose egg. It's not a lot of things we want to get down to 0. Our tax bill and our service ticket number, those are the things that we want at 0.
Awesome.
That's what we try to do.
Kevin, you have had a fire in you since I've met you. You always come off as a very approachable person, but you're a salesman, as I mentioned, and you've been doing this for 15 years. How have you continued to fuel that fire for 15 years?
I don't know if it's a good thing, but I don't celebrate for very long, right? So successes to me are just like, okay, great. Glad we were there. Great. High five. Sweet. What's next? You know, I'm always looking at the next sort of challenge or the next goal to meet. I love setting goals and going after them. And I really have a passion for what we do. And I want to deliver it to more people and to get out there and do better. There's always, you could always do better. Sometimes I need to be reeled back and stop and smell the roses a bit. My peers have helped talk to me about that. The people that I know and respect in business have hey, slow down. Look at what you've done, right? And it's like, okay, yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I should look at that a little bit more. But my family and my peers and things like that have been helpful in reeling me back. And the fire's there because I have kids now, and I want to make sure that they're well taken care of and things are set up for them. Not to spoil them or turn them into terrible people. I want them to be functional adults. But you know, I want to be able to provide futures for them and their children and things like that as we go. So, not that that's all on my shoulders, but still, I mean, you know, what, I don't know, legacy, I guess?
Yeah.
What is that? I don't know. It's, I wake up every day with it, and it can be a nuisance or it can be absolute motivation.
Yep. I think it's that that rock star in you, right? That metal front man or whatever it was.
I guess, yeah.
Like you got something that that again I see in other business owners as well, but you love what you're doing, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's just really awesome to see. So you mentioned your peers. You and I are together this week. We're amongst our peers talking about a bunch of different things. Can you talk a little bit about attending things like these BT events, business transformation events, as well as joining the peer groups has helped your business?
Well, it's been transformational. I'll tell you that, and I mean that. We did the CEO hot seat yesterday, and that was brutal, as we anticipated that it would be. But when we ran some of the data and just looking at our revenue and things like that, you can tell literally when we started coming to these business transformation events with Enable and join the peer groups and things like that, you literally see exactly a point where the revenue does a humongous increase. And it's because I was able to talk to so many different MSPs from not necessarily my geographical area that were fine and comfortable being open and honest with what they do and what they do not do. And what they do not do was one of those sobering things to learn. And so I go through and look at all these different notes that I've taken since we started these peer groups. I don't know how many notebooks that we've been given. And I'm like, oh man, all right, we did this. We are working on this. You know, it really gives us a path and allows us to be able to set obvious goals and specific goals on what we want to do. And these things you can't always do overnight, but you can start working your way toward them. And that's when you see keep seeing that revenue climb and keep going. And then sometimes you go off track. So you come back to one of these business transformation events and said, hey, don't forget, this is what you needed to do. You've been off track. You got to get back to this. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. And man, the support. You know what? A lot of these MSPs are coming from different states and different countries. And I got the business cards, and I receive emails from them, and I send emails to them, and we're hooked up on LinkedIn, and some of them I get text messages from, and so we're building relationships domestically and internationally, just to help each other, Just, I mean, and some of this too is like a support group, right?
Yep.
Like, doesn't it feel sometimes like you're in a support group? And when I hear these other people talk about their challenges and their successes and wins, I don't even have to talk. I can just say, oh yeah, definitely, I hear you. It's like a church almost. It's like, you know what I mean? When everybody's kind of vibing on the same thing. And then there's that healthy debate. You can I was just at lunch today. There was a really great debate happening. And some people are very bold in their stance, and they're absolutely, they feel like they're absolutely right in the way that they're doing things. And across the table is other people they feel like they're absolutely right, and they may be. For their market and what they're doing, they may be absolutely right in the way that they're thinking.
That's right.
But you get to see that. You get to see that opinion. You get to see that that other side of the table, and there's not really a whole lot of opportunities to do that as an MSP.
Awesome. You have one of my favorite quotes talking about the peer groups. You know, small businesses always get caught up in the day-to-day, right? And I've heard you once say, you know, even if it's just that 1 hour, hour and a half, a month, where you focus on the business instead of focusing in the business, that's the benefit you get, right? Just being able to take that time to focus on what's the bigger picture. And I think you've done a better job as you guys have grown and you've delegated some of your responsibility, your old responsibility, to your brothers and others in the organization to really focus on, I've got to focus on the business all the time. But being able to have the peer groups and that group around you, that support structure, like you said, it's pretty awesome to see. And I love your peer group in particular. I love to be able to pop my head in there once in a while and hear what you guys are talking about. And when you guys were able to share that growth, that success that you had, it was pretty awesome to see how proud you were of that too. So congrats, man.
Thank you.
That was a
very
good
much.
year.
Thank you. Yeah. And the thing was, it went by in such a blur that by the time it all ended up and we were running the numbers, I'm like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
That's got to be wrong. You know, we work with Dave and Instrumental and things like that, and like, no, that's right.
Awesome.
I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, that's fantastic. Great.
Good job. So talk about what's next for RCR.
Wow, yeah. So what's next for RCR is more of the same, right? We're going to evaluate our pricing and our stack and make sure that it's up to snuff, right? And as we're acquiring new clients, we need to make sure that our pricing is still good for our market, but you know, with all things economy, we need to make sure that we're pricing it correctly to be able to scale. But man, I mean, it's gonna be more of the same. I'm honing in on those TSMs. I'm finding out what's good content and what's not good content in those things, and then continuing to focus on our marketing and networking toward our vertical, right? Really focused on the vertical, because all the other business that comes in, a lot of it we will take, but our marketing and how we're focusing our business is going to be on our vertical, and the other stuff will come in organically, and we'll take it as we can, and you know, not be completely yes men to everything, but it's, you know, you don't always get business in your vertical, but you know you can help, you know, an opportunity that comes about. But really our focus is our vertical, and just becoming experts in that.
Awesome. So Kevin, I always like to ask this question on every single podcast. My last question: when did you know, now that's it?
Wow. I guess we've had some challenges over the years, right? It's been 15 years and it's not all been ups, right? And the downs are like, man, how are we gonna get out of this? How are we gonna move from this? Whether it's a client that you know you're gonna lose, and that maybe ends up happening, or whatever the situation may be, and you think that's the lowest, right? And well, you know, a couple months go by, and that wasn't even the worst. That wasn't. That things were way worse than that. And all we did was just, you know, get back to the basics and do what it is that we're good at, and push on. And it's like, wow, when you look back at what we've gone through, it's like, we're going to be able to make it through everything. We're going to be able to, whatever it is, we will be able to power through it. And that's it.
Awesome.
That's when now that's it. It's like there's not a whole lot that we're not going to be able to power through, shift, change, adjust, and make it happen. We've gone this far, and everybody's got motivation and the fire to keep going, and so that's exactly what we're going to do.
Congratulations, Kevin, on all your success. Can't wait to see what the next 15 years looks like. I wish you and your brothers and the rest of the RCR crew the absolute best of luck, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Chris.